Listen, the Nevertron. I'll break it down into a couple of different.
About 2 hours ago,
Syria, Lagos has become one of the largest exporters of Brazilian ivory in the world.
Live in a third world nation where your votes will get stolen if you can vote there at all.
Hello, welcome to Around the World with Dane Waters. I am your host. Hey, guess, am I your host or am I not your host? I don't know. I'm going to do a contest where I'm going to say to the world, guess who the host is of Around the World with Dane Waters. And if you get it, you get $5 or 5 quid, as we say in this country in the UK. So what's going on around the world? There's a very interesting thing going on with Trump's plane, and I encourage all the listeners to review it, where it shows, when he was leaving Turkey. He has a new plane from Qatar, and somehow they made him change to a different plane. But there's this emerging video that shows that he actually got into a catering truck, and when he got into that catering truck, what happened was they moved him to another plane, then another plane. It's very interesting and intriguing. I mean, listen, the president's safety is the most important thing in the world, but take a look at it. I think that's very interesting. Very sad about the earthquake in Colombia. You had Venezuela, Colombia. Listen, it's a fact of life. That the world sits on these tectonic plates, and when one shifts, the other shifts, and then another shifts until it gets kind of settled. And so I sadly believe that we're going to be seeing more of these earthquakes. Mother Nature's just not happy these days, and so just watch out for that. Ukraine, what's happening now. I mentioned this last week, and I'm going to have a guy on Ukraine. I'm going to have a guy from Ukraine on in a couple of weeks. We're going to talk about what's going on there. But I tell you, the big issue now is that there are just not enough Patriot missiles in the world. They're just not. And Trump had promised the Ukrainians to give them the technology to create the Patriot missiles so that they could defend themselves. But sadly, they don't. There's just not enough to go around. And so this is why you see excessive, even more deaths now happening in Ukraine, because of just no way to shoot them down. And so it's a problem. So we'll talk about that. And then the Middle East, of course, we have our second guest on today will be Saul Sadka, and we'll talk about the Netanyahu turning down Trump's 15-point plan for Gaza. So a lot going on, typically, as normal. And I will also encourage the world to look at the U.S. elections and the midterm elections. There's a lot of interesting things going on there. With the Michigan Senate race, the Texas Senate race. You got one case where there's a member of Congress, there's a member of the House of Representatives, and his ex-father-in-law is a U.S. senator, and the U.S. senator is saying that the congressman abused his wife, and so therefore he should not be reelected. I mean, so rarely do you see something like that play out in the halls of Congress, but it's happening. Drama, drama, drama everywhere. It's amazing. Anyway, but you know what? The world will survive. We will all survive, and we'll learn, hopefully, from all these experiences. Anyway, so let's take a quick break from Around the World with Dane Waters, and we'll be back with our first guest. Thanks a lot.
What we've always maintained is the Nevertron. I'll break it down into a couple of different.
about 2 hours ago,
Syria, Lagos has become one of the largest exporters of Brazilian ivory in the world.
Live in a third world nation where your votes will get stolen if you can vote there at all.
Welcome back to Around the World with Dane Waters. So let's get started. Today we're talking about Ghana, and I'm very honored to have with me George. I never get this right. Wareko Broby. Is it Broby? Wareko?
Yes.
How do you say that?
Yes, that's a record, Robbie. So that is actually very close. So
Yeah. Even
Good
from
job.
Alabama, I can occasionally say the right things. So, so George, welcome. You're there in Ghana. Were you in Accra?
Yes,
Is that where you
please.
are?
Yes, I'm in Accra at the moment.
Well, tell us a little bit about yourself, and then we'll get started to talk about Ghana.
Okay. All right, Dave. Thank you very much. So I am an industrial engineer, and I currently work in the energy space. I work for Ghana Gas, but has currently been seconded to Bost Energies. And Boss Energies, they are the distributors for fuel in Ghana. So they provide two services. One is price stabilization for providing fuel around Ghana. And the second, they are mandated to do strategic reserve for Ghana in all type of fuel used in Ghana at the moment. So that's where I am at the moment.
So let's talk about, well, I'm going to come back to the fuel issue and that issue, but let's talk about, I mean, you're a neighbor to Nigeria. The presidential election going on in Nigeria next year, early next year. As we all know, Nigeria, as much as I love the country, has a lot of challenges. But tell us about Ghana. I mean, there was a presidential election, I think it was last year. In your opinion, is the country on the right path, wrong path?
I think so far the government is doing well. I mean, they have very good macro numbers. The problem with the good macro numbers is not being translated to the households. So we still have a bit of a tough economy to deal with. Unemployment rates are quite high. It's about 30%, which is very alarming, and most of it is the youth. So it creates a bit of unrest for that, and makes the future kind of a difficult thing to put your eyes to. So I think for the government, and they kind of promised a three-shift system. They have been having difficulties in launching, but I'm kind of eager to see how they get it done. They've been 1.5 years into government, and it seems like they don't quite have a grasp on it. And I think that is something that they should look at and get it down to the people, because the people want jobs. The people want jobs. So I think it is what we are all looking to see. They focus on the numbers, and when you focus on the numbers so much, you kind of stop people from creating jobs because the money does not get down to the roots. So I think it's something that is creating a problem in the country. Yes.
So how does this? So we look at you talk about the youth. I mean, where are the potential for the jobs? What are the growth opportunities in Ghana right now?
I think the growth opportunities in Ghana now we should be focused more on the private sector. And I think for the private sector to kind of take off, there seem to be some stumbling blocks. One of them is a very high energy cost in Ghana. Ghana is paying around 18 cents USD per kilowatt of energy. That is almost the same as the national average in the US. And when you compare that to our per capita, I think the per capita in Ghana now is 3,300 USD versus US, which is almost 90,000 USD. So you see kind of the great disparity in energy cost, and that makes businesses not competitive on the international scale. So it doesn't allow the companies to compete with imports. So for me, my background before energy was into manufacturing. So I know the pitfalls of having high energy costs, especially when you have to compete with imports. And there's sort of also a high tax regime in Ghana. I think back in the days, it was kind of seen as an informal sector. So they levied a lot of consumable goods with heavy taxes, including fuel. And so as Ghana becomes formalized and the GRA, the Ghana Revenue Authority, starts going after businesses for tax, which is laudable, but they are kind of like a triple taxation system. You get taxed on your heavy input of goods, you are being taxed on your payees, and then furthermore, you are now being corporate taxes being heavily demanded. So I think that puts a lot of pressure on the private industries, who are the ones that can drive the employment growth, because governments cannot absorb them all. As it stands now, 50% of government revenue is spent on salaries, which is very alarming. So if you ask government to employ more without tripling their revenue, you are kind of heading to the ditch. So the only way forward is to develop private industry. And the government has taken a good stance. I think one of the mining companies' lease was up. They didn't want it, and it was offered only to indigenous Ghanaians. We've gotten one of the laudable companies, engineers and planners, who have bidded and won it, and they are going to run it. And for the first time, you see, we've gotten cases where, South Africa has a law where it says that 30% of the mining companies automatically should belong to the historically disadvantaged indigents, mainly the blacks in South Africa. Ghana has no such law. So international company can come and own 100% of a mine. And that makes that all their profits are repatriated. They barely do any social interventions. So for the first time, when the indigenous Ghanaian company won, he's promised a lot of things, and we are excited to see what happens. He's promised about five things off the top of my head. I think one was a major road he's promised to construct between the mining town and the next biggest city, Cape Coast. He's promised to bring an international airport to the mining community. He's promised to build two major hospitals along with other sports facilities, and also promised to keep his profits locally. And that is a very excellent turn of events. And I believe that will ultimately help the employment in the area. Because if you are building an airport, you are doing construction, you are building hospitals, you're going to be employing people. And I think that is the way the country should go. So I'm very excited about the step they have taken. You have places like Obuasi Mine, which is being mined for 130 years, and you go there and it's the state of it is quite alarming, very disappointing. So I think this new direction the government has taken, I'm excited to see that thing.
Well, you're right about one thing. You're right about many things. One is that, I mean, the government can't be the primary employer in a country. I mean, you have to have a strong middle class and entrepreneurship and businesses, because you need that tax revenue from independent businesses. So let's talk about, Ghana has a lot of natural resources, but isn't one of the issues confronting Ghana is the fact that previous governments have cut really bad deals with foreign companies about the control of the natural resources?
Yes, Dane, you are absolutely right. The deals have not been transparent. It's left the country needing so much more. As I mentioned earlier, South Africa has a policy where 30% of the shareholding goes to the local, both the community and the indigents. And Ghana could have benefited with such a law that you've seen transform South Africa's wealth. So I do believe that is something that we have to look into and make sure that the
Wait, George,
companies
real quick, you can jump off your phone and jump on your computer over there if you want to. So let's just hang up for your phone. Yeah, let's just do that. Better video. There you go. There you go, man. Now we get to see your beautiful head. There you go. So keep going. So keep going.
Yes, Lee. So, as I was saying earlier, it's about transparency. The deals that haven't been cut, people don't know where the money is going, and there's a feeling among the citizens that the politicians are benefiting on the blind side. That's why they're allowing such deals to be cut and not looking at other countries who have been able to use these natural resources to kind of elevate themselves. You mentioned Nigeria, they also have the same issue as us. And you look at a country like Norway, even though the Nigerian population is much bigger, you get a country like Norway who had oil, and you can see how that transformed their economy and the type of benefits they have gotten from it. But no African country has gotten that. When Ghana found oil in 2006, thereabouts, we thought it was going to transform our economy, and it's not quite done that today. And that is quite depressing for us. So I think it's high time that we kind of demanded that local participation and local content should be taken seriously so that we build our capacity for that.
Yeah, but when I was there and I've met with several members of the government, they were always talking about, I mean, we talked about, there's been a lot of conversation about renegotiating these deals with these companies and governments and about the natural resources. Everyone talks about renegotiating, but it never happens. And why is it not happening?
Dean, I think that is a question above my pay grade, but I think from just sitting outside as a common Ghanaian, I seem to think that it is not happening. One, I suspect the international community puts a lot of pressure, both IMF when they come into the place. I remember in the previous administration, there was an issue where some of the mining companies were getting a lot of tax waivers when they start operation. And I think there was a fight to get it waived. So I think a lot of their governments put a lot of pressure on our government to make sure that their interests are protected, while the common Ghanaian is left out to suffer in my view. So I think the common answer is their governments are looking out for them and ours is not.
Well, let's talk about this. We talk. There's a lot of talk around the world about corruption in West Africa. There's corruption all over the world, but primarily in West Africa. Corruption in Nigeria, corruption in Ghana, corruption in Sierra Leone. I mean, a lot of West African nations supposedly have corruption. I mean, do you think that corruption is a big issue in the government there?
I think we've had our fair share of scandals. We've had a fair share of scandals that talks about corruption. But I think for the situation, corruption is not something that can be eliminated. I think there should be systems put in place to make sure that whatever deals is done, it is value for money. I think what we see now in the government space is people don't feel that there's value for money. I talked about the high taxation. People feel the government is collecting taxes, but whether it's being a fair use of tax is an issue because I can't pay so much tax and then I go to the hospital and the government hospitals are barely functioning. I have to go to a private hospital or travel abroad to get the best medical treatment. I think those are the issues that we have to discuss. I think people are too focused on the corruption issue. For example, you have an issue about the illegal mining situation in Ghana now. It's become a problem for the past 10 years. We've had illegal mining situations, and the government keeps on trying to stop it. And all that we hear is the people being sent to go and stop it are being bribed, corrupt. The previous vice president on his campaign trail had promised a lot to do with that sector, and I think it was a very laudable idea. He had planned to do government-sponsored exploration so he could direct the miners to be in a controlled and monitored environment. And I think that was kind of a good path for that. I feel it's something that the current administration to look into to do. And he did say a lot of laudable ideas. So I think it's something that should really be studied because as you're saying that the corruption is there in our society. It's been there for hundreds of years. I don't think any government can eradicate corruption. Just like you've seen in the US with the current administration, you've had a lot of corruption scandals. We had some for the first time in the UK during the COVID issue, where there's a lot of corruption scandals. So I think it's something that is part of the human nature. But as I said, you can put system in place and demand accountability and demand value for money so that even when you hear these things, it's not a situation where the citizens were put at a very bad end of it.
Yeah, I mean, listen, I agree with you about corruption. I mean, corruption is one of those things, human beings are greedy. That's what happens. I mean, and there's going to be corruption. You're not going to get rid of it. And so a lot of politicians who campaign on that issue, it's not something that happens overnight. I mean, in America, as you said, we have corruption. There's corruption in every single country in the world. But once again, I would argue that most of the corruption takes place in the executive branch of government. But you still have the parliament. I mean, do you believe that the parliament is providing a proper check and balance on the executive branch there?
So no, I don't believe that the parliament is doing their job. I think they have a very clear overview of the numbers, the contracts, everything. But I feel that we have a system where the parliament is, for lack of a better word, they are compromised because they are serving the executive, which should not be the case. And I think that drives us to a very important point. Ghana is having a constitutional review, and one of the points are like the parliamentarians should not hold ministerial offices. And I feel it's 100% right. We should stop that situation, because you can't have somebody in the parliament benefiting from the executive. So now they are interested in becoming ministers. So they are whipping other members into shape, rewarding them with board positions and stuff like that. So I think it's something that our parliament has failed to control because in Ghana, we have a system of democracy where one winner takes all. It's a very bad system. And with this constitutional review, they also wanting the mayor, city mayors to be elected. So two major issues. One is the mayors are not going to be appointed as before. They are going to be elected by the constituents, which is very good. I think it will allow for decentralization to actually work, and people are going to be held accountable. And the parliamentarians too are not going to be allowed ministerial positions. So I'm very excited to see how that happens for the next chapter of Ghana if it gets passed by the parliament. So I think because they do enjoy the fact that they have to help appoint the district assembly heads or the mayors, as you call it. They enjoy from that because it's a whole crony system that has benefited them for many years. So I think that once the constitutional review, if it gets approved by them, if they really have Ghana's interest at heart, they'll make sure that it gets approved. I think I'm excited to see how that plays out for Ghana. As you said, the parliament is not holding the executive branch accountable. They are rather singing to their tune to get rewarded, and that is a major problem.
It is definitely a major problem. I mean, it's the fact that, mayors are not elected by the constituency. The fact that, like here in the UK as well, I mean, you have a system where, the prime minister just appoints whoever the ministers are, and they're members of the parliament. I mean, there's a lot of conflict there. I mean, there needs to be greater accountability and greater transparency. And I think that the two reforms you're talking about there in Ghana are very, very critical and very important, and I support them. But let's talk about the economy overall real quick. I mean, we touched on it earlier. When I was there, I mean, a lot of elected officials were blaming COVID on why the economy was so bad. But listen, COVID's gone. You can't use COVID as an excuse anymore. So, do you think that the rank and file Ghanaian is doing okay? Do you think there needs to be subsidies? I mean, tell me more about if you were elected tomorrow, what were the top three reforms you would bring to the country?
Okay, so basically, I think the top three reforms, as you mentioned COVID earlier, I think COVID did create a big dent on Ghana's economy. But as you rightly said, in 2024, you could see a rise you could see a growth so they had very strong numbers in 2024, which led to a successful 2025. So I think the COVID issue was dealt with by the previous administration, rightly so. It created a lot of issues. The debt exchange program, it was a lot of, and it led to the current administration losing massively at the polls. Historical number lost over close to 2 million votes were lost. So I think it's something that they paid quite high for it. So I feel that in moving forward, this administration will be very careful in the economical numbers, and they had to sit up because you are hearing a bit of the same grantles people had. But as you said, in Ghana, I think one major issue is unemployment, as I said earlier, and I think the only way to curb it is supporting industry. We need to support the industry. We need to give them a better, for example, tariffs for electricity. The tariffs are just too high to make any good manufacturing margins in Ghana, and that translates a lot. People are using about 1/3 of their income just to pay the statutory household bills, which is astronomical. I think it's something that the government has to do. There's an issue of healthcare. Healthcare is terrible for the common Ghanaian. You hear issues of the politicians always flying abroad for medical assistance. I mean, it's our emergency services are non-existent. If you have an issue and you call an ambulance, you might as well jump into a taxi and go. So I think something that we have to look at very much so. And then the third one is the raw material based. I think Ghana has to move away from pure extraction of raw material shipping to refinery at least. We can't go all the long haul, but I think the basic needs of refinery of the raw materials has to be done locally, and that ties into the energy cost because more raw materials needs a lot of energy to convert it, be it gold refinery, bauxite refinery, oil refinery. I think all of them is much based on the energy sector. Ghana uses about 80% thermal energy, heavy fuels, and I think that is not the way to go. We have to look at renewable energy and even consider nuclear energy if that be. I remember the previous administration did well, led by the then VP candidate, Dr. Matthew Pogu Prempeh. He did a lot on the nuclear side, actually signed a deal with the Chinese to come and provide nuclear energy, get rid of the waste. And this administration came and we don't know what has happened to it. It's just been stalled. I think it's something that should be looked at because these refineries can benefit from that nuclear energy. So I think it's something that if I was elected or if I had opportunity to join government in the next administration, I think I would definitely push for that cheaper energy sources, specifically to target for the industry, to attract industry here to come to refine the natural resources you mentioned, because Ghana does have a lot of that, and we should leverage on that. And automatically that will translate to employment. And we also have to look at the educational system. We have a lot of graduates that don't have the skills needed for the country. We've done a lot of courses that are not beneficial. The previous administrator was pushing what we call the STEM education for engineering. I feel we need a lot of that for a country that wants to grow and industrialize. I think we should be focused on that for the educational sector. They did free education, so you have a lot of people finishing high schools, but then when they get to university levels, the courses they choose are quite lacking in skills.
Well, one of the biggest issues, of course, and we got to go here, is that, even if you educate your youth, if they don't have jobs when they graduate, they're going to move away. So you have a brain drain, right? You have a lot of people leaving. So
exactly, and then you have the best minds to leaving the crop, and that is a concern. We had an issue where our nurses were being absorbed in the UK and other countries, and for me, they had to go to test and get results and stuff like that. So you had an issue where a lot of thousands of nurses were leaving. But my issue was like, it's good. People are getting employment. The country doesn't have employment. But then you have a situation where the best of the best are leaving. So it was something that was
yeah,
very...
but luckily for Ghana, you stayed. So luckily for Ghana, you.
Yes.
Listen, George, sadly, we're out of time. I really enjoyed the conversation. I do. And listen, what we need, for Ghana, I mean, Ghana has a lot of opportunity, and we need people like you, and the country needs people like you who can help govern it properly and have good, sound ideas to move in the right direction. Because you're spot on. I mean, listen, if you don't promote businesses, you don't promote job growth, you don't promote education and take care of a healthy workforce, then you're not going to survive. So listen, I applaud your efforts. Good luck with you, and I look forward to having you on the show again in the future. Okay, George?
Thank you.
So,
Thank you very
a lot.
much, Dan. Thank you.
Let's take a quick break from Around the World with Dane Waters, and we'll be back with our next guest. Thanks a lot.